Hello everyone, in this video we're going to draw a bald eagle. We'll start by drawing a few simple shapes, then add the final drawing on top using easy line work, and then add a bit of shading for the final result. I'll add a link to the materials used in the description below. Let's jump in. Start by drawing a circle as a guide for the head. And an easy way to draw a circle is to first make a couple of small marks to indicate the circle's height, and then on the sides make a couple more small marks to indicate the circle's width. Then just connect the small marks using curved lines to finish the shape of the circle. And sketch lightly at first so that it's easy to erase if you make a mistake. Also pause the video as you follow along to draw at your own pace. You don't have to draw a perfect circle, but if you're having trouble drawing one, it's okay to trace the outer edge of a cup or a lid, or anything else with a circular edge. And inside the circle, draw a long horizontal line to split the shape in half. And this line will help you place the facial features later on. Extend the line on the left side so that it's outside of the circle. And on the left tip of the line, make a small mark to indicate the front part of the beak. Then connect the small mark to the circle using curved lines to finish the guide for the beak. And pay attention to where you place the small mark on the line, because if you place it too far to the left, the beak might be too long. The shape of the beak should be short and wide in relation to the head. It should be similar to an arc on its side. Starting on the top right side of the head, draw a long line that curves downward to create the guide for the neck. And this line will also make the shape of the head slightly wider than the initial circle. So draw the line curving to the right and then downward. And on the bottom left side of the head, draw a shorter sloping line as a guide for the left side of the neck. And draw these lines pretty low in relation to the first circle. And at the bottom, draw a long horizontal line to close off the shape of the neck. And the shape of the neck should be wide. And that's it for the guidelines. Now let's start on the final drawing. Okay, inside the head, lightly sketch a small circle for the eye. And place the eye on top of the horizontal construction guide and close to the center of the circle. The eye should be above the center of the circle and slightly to the left. And when you get the shape of the eye right, draw a short line at the top for the bottom edge of the heavy brow. And draw this line close to the top edge of the circle. Don't draw it too far down or you'll block the eye. Make the line thick and darken the shape of the circle. And around the eye, draw a couple of curved lines for the bare skin around the eye. Use a couple of angled lines to create the corners of the eye. And at the top, draw a couple more angled lines to really emphasize the shape of the brow hanging over the eye. And add a few more short lines to create a sort of feathery texture around the eye. And draw these lines close to the shape of the eye. Don't draw them too far away from the eye. Inside the eye, draw a small circle for a highlight. And in the middle of the eye, draw a slightly bigger circle for the pupil and shade it in. And don't overlap the tiny highlight circle as you shade in the pupil. And add a couple more lines on the left side for a bit of texture on the feathers. Use the big arc on the left side as a guide to draw the beak. And first draw an angled line for the base of the beak, and draw this line close to the left edge of the circle. Then darken the top part of the initial arc to create the top part of the beak. On the left side, curve the line downward so that it's outside of the arc to create the tip of the beak. And make the front part of the beak a bit more sloped and less curved than the initial arc. And at the bottom, draw a line that curves up and to the right to create the beak's opening. The right tip of this line should extend farther to the right than the eye. Sketch lightly at first and only darken the lines when you get the shapes right. And as you darken the beak's opening, you can add a couple of short angled lines for a more stylized look. Then darken the bottom edge of the arc to create the bottom section of the beak, and extend the line farther to the right so that it's inside the head. Draw a horizontal line on the right side of the beak's opening, and below that draw a few sloping lines for the feathery texture of the base of the beak. Just a couple of short lines that curve down and to the right. And at the top, draw a couple more lines to create the base of the beak. Pay attention to how far the base of the beak is from the eye. It's not very close to the eye. Add a few short strokes along the path of this line to create a feathery texture. So the right side of the mouth should be surrounded by a curved shape, and draw this shape close to the line for the mouth. And inside the top part of the beak, draw a small pointy shape for the nostril. And the shape of the nostril should be similar to a drop of water that's upside down. And on top of the beak, draw a curved line for the front part of the head or the forehead, and draw this line slightly farther to the left than the initial circle. And sketch lightly at first and only darken the line when you get the shape right. Then just darken the outer edges of the initial guides to create the shape of the head. And as you darken the right side of the head, draw a couple of angled lines along the path of the guide to create individual feathers. Make these lines sort of triangular in shape and make them different sizes. Darken the left edges of the initial guides to create the rest of the neck. Curve the line below the beak slightly more to the right so that it's inside the head. And along the bottom, draw a few triangular shapes for the individual feathers on the neck. Draw the shapes along the path of the horizontal line, but don't draw them exactly on the horizontal line. Draw them slightly higher or lower to add a little bit of variety on the feathers. Draw a few of them big, a few of them small, and a few of them thin. Add a few short curved lines on the sides for the small visible section of the top part of the body. And if you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And now let's move on to finalize the drawing. Now erase the initial guidelines. And you don't have to erase all of the guidelines, it's okay if you leave some behind. If you do want to erase all of the guidelines, you can use a small click eraser like I'm using, and this is sort of like a mechanical pencil, but at the tip it has a thin eraser. It works great for getting between those final lines and getting all of the guidelines erased. And then just redraw any of the final lines that you may have accidentally erased. And now shade your drawing. Shade the beak using a light value. And you can shade with your regular pencil, and to get light values you just push down slightly on your pencil, and to get darker values you push down harder on your pencil. Or you can use pencils with different graphite grades like I'm using. And for the beak, I'm using an HB graphite grade, and that produces a very light value which works great for the beak. For darker values, you can push down slightly harder on your pencil, or you can use pencils with graphite grades that are slightly higher. I'm using a 4B to create deeper, darker shadows. And pick a light source as you shade so that the shadows are consistent throughout your drawing. And here the light source is coming from the top, so most of the shadows will be on the undersides of the shapes. So add a dark value across the left side of the neck because the beak is casting a shadow on that section. And add a bit of dark value at the bottom to create a bit of the body, but don't overlap the thin, pointy shapes that create the feathers along the neck. Now go over the final lines one more time using a dark value to really emphasize the shapes, and this also makes the drawing a little bit more graphic. And you can use a small piece of scrap paper to rest your hand as you shade so that you don't smudge your drawing. Add a few more short lines inside the head to create more texture on the feathers. Shade the inside of the eye using a light value, but don't overlap the tiny highlight circle. If you'd like, you can draw a rectangle to create a background and really make the shape of the eagle pop. Shade the inside of the rectangle to really emphasize the white on the head. And that's it for the bald eagle. Remember to pause the video to draw at your own pace. Also, please visit howtodrawanimals.com for more tutorials. That's how, and then the number 2, then drawanimals.com. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying my books on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. Let me know in the comments what other animals you want to see me draw. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep drawing.